so serious?
We can put it in the podcast.
Is that your partial Movember? So we got to sit here because of the microphone.
Oh,
so
perfect.
Take one or two there. No, he looks different.
Did you groom yourself for this thing?
Yeah,
So
it's very
what actually
serious.
happened last night was I accidentally shaved off part of my beard.
It happens.
So I was
yeah.
like, well, I can't
It happens. Yeah.
can't keep it like that.
Put it
so-
on the wrong setting.
Well,
happened to me before.
Well, no, actually, the clip fell out mid-shave.
Oh,
So I was like, I was
yikes.
just trimming it. All of a sudden, it's like,
That happened to Mr. Waldman last, but when he cuts his own hair, but he did that. That's why he grew it out, because he cut a huge chunk right down to the skin, and then so he had to let it grow out.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's even worse, right?
Well, that's what happens when you try to cut your own hair. There's hazards involved with that, right?
You get what you pay for.
Yeah, exactly. There's a
Exactly.
risk involved. Yeah.
Oh.
So that was my story yesterday. I was like,
It was your exciting weekend, all right.
well, I was contemplating like, do I shave it all off? But then I'm like, man, I'm just going to look like I'm. Like
Well, you should have
19.
gone Movember.
I thought about that too, but it doesn't really suit me.
Well, it doesn't
Mustache?
suit anybody, really.
Does it suit
Except
me?
for Tom
Look
Selleck.
at
It
this.
totally suits you. It actually does.
Look at this.
Kind of does. You can pull it off.
You can pull it off quite well.
No, you're just saying that. You're just being nice.
No. Because the other people in the building that are growing out mustaches, I would not say it suits them at all.
Like who?
So hot.
So actually,
Grimsy.
I thought his is great.
it's
looks like a
great.
cop.
It's great, but it seems
Yeah,
like
he doesn't look like himself.
It seems like he's changed up his shirts as well to go with the mustache.
Yeah, I think that's what I need to do.
Yeah,
I need to get. I don't know what I would. How do you match up with your mustache? I don't know.
Hawaiian shirt and a Detroit Tigers.
Yeah.
And sunglasses,
Hawaii
aviator glasses. Yeah, sounds good to me.
There you go.
Yeah.
Are we on?
We're always on.
Really, we're on right now.
We're teachers. We're
Okay.
always on.
So this is just more like a conversation.
I guess. I guess you could. Or some would say interrogation.
An interrogation, yeah.
I've been looking at Barbara
before.
Walters' interviews and how she
Yeah.
makes people cry.
Oh, yeah, she's...
That's where I want to. That's the level I want to get to.
Well, you've heard of Sean Evans and his Hot Ones?
the chicken wing content.
chicken wing,
Yes,
yeah.
I've watched a few.
Oh.
Not
So-
very many, but a few.
So, like, his segment is, like, he's been getting some, like, pretty good A-listers on his on his show now. But, like, his thing is that every question or, like, part of his show, they have to eat a spicy and spicier wing all throughout. So
Gets
there's 10 in
progressively
total.
hotter, yeah.
And there's a hot sauce that, accompanies it, so you know, like, what they're getting themselves into. But I guess, like, his philosophy is, like, through the experience of eating really hot wings, they tend to release more information.
Makes you more vulnerable.
Makes you more vulnerable, and that's they do kind
Okay.
of go through like an emotional breakdown at some point. So, and it's tears, but in
That's
like
forced
it's more like
tears.
it's more like physical pain.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I always like that one because it's definitely different.
You've never seen that?
You should definitely see
I'm
it. It's
surprised
great.
you haven't.
I've seen like versions
pop-up.
of that type of exercise, and I
Yeah.
thought it was interesting. Like on Jimmy Fallon,
Oh,
they
okay.
did something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Um,
It's very unique.
I've seen very few episodes, but I watched one recently with Noel Gallagher, the musician, the guitarist from Oasis.
Yeah.
yeah,
And because any interview with either him or his brother usually
or both.
pretty funny.
It's more exciting.
Well, they won't sit down together
they
anymore.
won't.
But
Also, like Sean
done.
Evans, he's actually really good. Like he does his research, and he has a really good
it was
delivery
good.
too with his questions. It's not like robotic, and he's got some pretty cool ideas that he brings in each episode. But like he's been having some pretty good people on his show lately.
example.
Well, who's that? Shia LaBeouf. Like, he
yeah.
rarely likes to do interviews, but he was very open, much more open. He's had like Neil deGrasse Tyson on his show.
Oh, that'd be a good
one. And usually as you're watching, you're trying to think like, well, he's had like Chef Ramsay. Like that was like a big one because people always wanted like, oh, you should get Chef Ramsay. He's a cook, right? Like him eating chicken
Did
wings.
he
You'd all
critique the
appreciate
wings?
very slightly, but I think his issue was that, like, to him, like, that super spicy hot wings is not
It's offensive, yeah.
very offensive to the
Right,
palate.
because it covers up everything.
It covers up
Yeah.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah, just like when you go to
blast your taste
a
buds.
good sushi restaurant, you're actually offending the chef if you dip it in a pool of soy sauce and put a whole bunch of wasabi over it.
Yeah.
Very true.
You can't taste anything, right?
Yeah.
It's like
it ends
putting
up just being
ketchup
soy
on
sauce.
a good steak, right, or something.
Yeah, gross.
I don't know. People do it.
Ketchup on steak?
Sure.
I've never seen that.
I've seen
ketchup on eggs.
Oh yeah, I'll put a little ketchup on eggs, sure.
Yeah.
I think the worst one is ketchup on like mac and cheese.
Oh yeah, I can't do that
can't
either.
do that. It's just those are like two pretty rich sauces when you think about it, like combined.
Mac and cheese with a little bit of Tabasco sauce. I love that.
Yeah, that
First time I had that was
before.
camping.
Yeah, I've had it with like a little. It was like chipotle sauce, but it was like mixed in, not like put on top, and that was really good. Yeah, that was really good.
So as for our podcast,
There will be
there's
food.
no format. There's no food.
I was hoping there'd be
apologize.
food because
You were asking about
John
the Japanese
went
cheesecake.
and had Japanese cheesecake yesterday, and I know he took one home
I
because I,
went
saw
all
the
the way to
pictures.
Metrotown.
And I thought maybe he would bring one in for
Japanese
us to
cheesecake?
try, but no.
Well, a student told me that on Sun because they're notorious for huge lineups.
Okay,
It's called Uncle
I would
Tetsu's in Metrotown. We first had Japanese cheesecake when
seen
we
that
were in
before.
Japan in August. We went to Osaka, and they had this place called Rikuro. So it's a different company, but they're all Uncle Tetsu is also from Japan. I don't know where, but somewhere in Japan. But Japanese cheesecake is very unique because it's light and fluffy and
It's almost like a souffle.
jiggly,
Kind of.
yeah,
Okay.
kind of.
Yeah.
And it's there's the element of cheese. You can still taste the cheese, but it's not like a New York cheese
Right.
cake.
It's like thick and rich.
It's a bit more
Fluffier
eggy.
and lighter. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's jiggly,
yeah.
Airy.
airy,
More airy.
jiggly. Yeah,
Because I've had a I think it's German, like a German cheesecake, and it's very similar. Like it's a Cork cheesecake. So Cork is like it's got lots of like pockets in it, so it's more airy.
okay.
It's not as rich, and it's actually really good if it's been frozen and then thawed, because then it's almost like an ice cream. Yeah,
That's
Well,
cool.
that sounds good. So you should try freezing one of those and see what happens.
I'm not. It's probably
either
uses
way,
a different
bring it
kind of
in.
cheese, but yeah, I don't know.
It said to chill it, so I did, and then microwave half of it. It was very specific. Microwave half of it, so I cut it in half for 30 to 60 seconds. Now that's not specific, but I guess it's up to you.
Depends on the microwave.
Yeah, and then it was delicious.
30 to 60 seconds.
Yeah.
That's a
Sounds
huge
good.
range. That's like for like a hot pocket. That's
Well,
like
you gotta warm
It's
it
like
up.
this much. I don't know. It's like
Go 45,
6
you're gold.
inches or something.
Fine.
Yeah, and it's like $13 for like a 6-inch
Wow.
cake. It's like it was gone
yeah,
in an instant.
yeah.
But anyways, I interrupted you. You were saying there's no format to the podcast.
Yeah, as we've just demonstrated.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We just riff.
and as for research,
Yeah.
we can't research you.
We
Yeah, I cannot be
collectively
found on the
cooled
internet.
ourselves before you came in and agreed that we knew like nothing about you.
Yeah,
Hence this interrogation.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to
the
pronounce
spotlight.
your last name. Is it Minichiello?
I just asked Miss Goltz and she said it was Minichiello. Because I had
Minichiello.
Still wrong.
Minichiello.
Minichiello.
Chiello.
Oh my
well,
God.
it's Italian.
No one's ever
It's
said
the
that.
Italian, yeah.
that's the
Minichiello.
Chiello.
Minichiello. Yeah. So
Minichiello.
the way that usually when I have like a new classroom or anything, I write the word mini and then the word key, like door key, and then the word yellow. And I ask them to put all three of those
Minichiello.
together.
Okay.
Minichiello, and that ends up working.
That's pretty
100%
good.
of the time.
We never got that talk.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I'm honestly okay with Minichiello because I've been called that almost all my life.
But
Yeah.
you should be okay with that.
Yeah, it should.
I usually, my name's a bit like, I get Sally a lot.
Sally?
And I usually just say it's close enough. But I used to say phonetically to students, saw, like S-A-W, Lee, L-E.
Yeah.
It's like I saw Lee across the street.
I think also like where I grew up in
Then
Squamish, there was a
Mr.
lot
Self.
of like English Anglo-Saxon community that I lived in, and so their last names were like Jacobson or Smith, right? So I got a lot of that, or like Carter. So
Where did you grow up?
Squamish?
Okay, we know
Squamish.
something about him now. Write that down.
Right there.
Okay. Grew up
Added
in
to the pile.
Squamish.
Squamish. Okay.
Grew up in Squamish, so I wasn't born there, but I was born in North Van, but I basically had most of my childhood in Squamish between like 5 and 15.
Fascinating.
Wow.
And I would say, going on like what we were talking about, like most of my friends, at least growing up, were white, and like I can still classified as white, but like, oh, your last name's different. Oh, it's like, oh, you got arm hair. Like, oh, what's your background?
You're different.
Oh, I'm half Italian, half Armenian. Oh, Armenian. What's that like? Where's that from? So I've always been
Armenian.
like slightly different.
Interesting.
And the last name was a huge part of it. The Armenian side of thing has always been a talking piece, but
Didn't know the Armenian thing.
Yeah.
It's okay, there's the second thing we can write down. So your mum is Armenian?
mother's Armenian, father's Italian.
Interesting.
My father was born in Canada. My mother was born in Lebanon.
Okay.
But they so
Lebanese Armenian.
yeah, so they so like her parents, they were born in Armenia, but it was sort of as the Armenian genocide was sort of closing. That's when they immigrated to Lebanon.
Yeah.
And then from there to Canada because they had some family already in Canada, so they made the move from
So they
Lebanon.
escaped.
They escaped.
Into Lebanon.
Yeah. And so I think recently, within like the last like 5 years, we've actually started to collect photos of like what the family, the extended part of the family was back in Armenia. So we have a little bit of evidence, but we can't really put names to faces because the photographs are so old. And also we don't really know where some of these people ended up from our family. It's either they escaped and we just don't know where they went, or they were lost in the genocide. Like
Wow.
Yeah, so
there's a part of your family tree that's just missing.
there's just completely missing, especially on my my mother's father's side. He's got, I think he said he's had about like 10 or 11 siblings and only knows about 3 of them that are around.
Oh, it's terrible.
Yeah. Wow. So yeah, and it's even worse on my mother's side too.
What year was that?
I'm not 100% sure. I think it was
Over a few years, right?
Yeah, it was over a few years, and I think it was. I keep mixing up my dates. It was either like after World War I or just before World War II. It was like somewhere in between there, or I could be completely off.
Okay.
But yeah.
So they went to Lebanon.
Yeah.
And then how did your mom meet your dad?
So they both grew up in Montreal, and then it was through a mutual friend. So it wasn't really much of a...
So it was after coming here.
It was after coming here. So they met about first year of college, but they were in different colleges. So their mutual friend sort of knew them. So that's how they met each other. Yeah. Yeah.
And then how did they end up in Squamish? Because it's such a totally different place.
Yeah. So
like, what was the population of Squamish when you were growing up there?
I think it was probably about 7,000-8,000.
Okay.
Could be a little bit less, but not more than that. And Squamish was sort of divided up where there was the reservation, and then there was considered the downtown area, which wasn't very affluent compared to the neighborhood I grew up, which was called Garibaldi Highlands. So it was that community, Garibaldi Highlands, probably had, I don't know, like 500-600 people. And it was off to this, it was kind of off the side of Squamish. You're still in Squamish, but just off the side, on basically the side of a hill. And you can basically grow up there and not have any reason to visit any other part of Squamish. Yeah. And so when I think of my childhood, it's that community strictly. Yeah, you might go into town sometimes to go to the bank, but like your grocery store was in Garibaldi Highlands, your postal office was there.
Okay.
There was like 2 different schools. The only time that I actually had to come off of the Garibaldi Highlands was to go to junior high. And that's when I actually met more people from around Squamish.
So did you like commute on a ferry, or did you live in town when you were in high school?
In high school? Oh, like commuting from Garibaldi Highlands to high school? So it was a bus. Like it was a school bus that, made its rounds in through the neighborhood, and you had to make sure you're at your bus stop, which I always felt like that was like the old-fashioned way to get to school. Was you wait for your bus, you had to make sure you're right there at like 8:12, or else you missed it. You had to get a ride. But how my parents ended up in Squamish was my dad was born in Montreal. My mother had immigrated from Lebanon to Montreal, so they had grown up in Montreal. They went to school in Montreal. They were married and had my brother when they were around 27. Mm-hmm. And so they had lived there for a long time, and they just did not like it. They did not like Montreal. And I think it was two things. It was weather, and it was the French-English clash.
Okay.
That just started to rub them the wrong way. And like they were forced to put my brother into a French-speaking school. Like they couldn't decide if they could put him in an English-speaking school. Would this have
been like the 1980s?
This would have been 87, 88, 89. Yeah. So right around there.
It was a contentious time period, yeah.
Very contentious. Yeah. And they just grew out of it. And my dad had heard of Vancouver, so went to visit Vancouver and was like, Vancouver's quite nice. It's different. It's a bit low-key, much more tame in comparison.
Very low-key here.
And
in Montreal.
Decided, okay, let's make the move. Mm-hmm. And so I was not born yet, but basically within that year of moving, I was born, so 1990. And then within 3 or 4 years living in Vancouver, found out it was too expensive to live in Vancouver, so moved to Squamish. Mm-hmm. And then lived there for about 10 years, and then realized, Squamish, we outgrew Squamish, so moved back to Vancouver.
All right.
So interesting, because I don't know anybody who grew up in Squamish.
It's nice to meet some people who have lived in Squamish or have heard of Squamish and want to move there, and then they find out that I've lived there and like, oh, Squamish, it's like? So great. Yeah. And so my experience with Squamish in a nutshell was it was great growing up there between 5 and 15. And then when I got to about high school, I felt that the mindset, especially around young people, was this is my life now, is Squamish. And there was no real aspiration to like pursue a career or, go on to post-secondary, because there wasn't a post-secondary in Squamish. And a lot of my friends, their parents either they worked in lumber, which that closed down shortly after I moved. Railroad, which was pretty much a dying industry, or they worked in, some like service industry or in there. My parents, they never worked in Squamish. Mm-hmm. They worked in Vancouver and commuted all 10 years that we lived there. So they've always wanted to move back to Vancouver because they knew, like, in terms of their career, it was in Vancouver, and making that commute was so rough. Mm-hmm.
Like downtown Vancouver? Or
downtown? Well, my mom worked in North Van. My dad worked in downtown Vancouver. So it was tough for them, and I can imagine now, because when I was living in Vancouver commuting to Delta, I was like, man, I can't do this for more than a year, so I couldn't imagine what that commute was like from Squamish to Vancouver.
Yeah.
But when I was about 15, I noticed that was kind of the path for a lot of my friends, and I was like, it doesn't sound really good. And I just was getting bored of Squamish, too. I think after 10 years, I was like, it's not really for me. I think if you're really into the outdoorsy stuff, which I was at the time, but I knew it wasn't going to be like that forever. Right. Like that's when I was like, I want to move back to Vancouver. So it ended up being perfect timing because my parents wanted to make that move. So I was entering grade 10 at that time when I moved back to Vancouver. So it was nice too because we moved to East Van, and now I felt like I was like in a city.
Which high school did you go
to? Gladstone.
Yeah. I've taught
Gladstone
there.
Secondary. Yeah?
TLC there.
Okay.
Many times.
Yeah. Anytime between 2005 and 2008?
No. 2005 I was already here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. 2003 I came to Delview. So I TLC'd between 1999 and 2002 when I went to Delta Secondary.
Yeah, so... Because in Squamish, I was originally at a junior high, so my grade 10 year, I would have started at the big high school in Squamish. Mm-hmm. So I never got that opportunity, which not really a big deal. But when I moved to East Van, went to Gladstone, much bigger high school, and it was 8 to 12 instead of 8 and 9. So it was like much bigger high school, different culture, different atmosphere.
It was like junior in Squamish, 8, 9.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then it was 10, 11, 12. And so you started at the junior high and then you went to basically the secondary school. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But going from there to East Van, I was just, I don't know, I felt like I was just happier. I felt like it was more who I was. I felt like I always wanted to be part of a city, part of a, something a little bit bigger than.
And East Van has its own particular culture.
It does.
Yeah,
absolutely.
definitely.
Like I lived right off the drive.
Yeah.
You're a SkyTrain away from downtown or Burnaby.
Mm-hmm.
Larger, like in terms of diversity, is a lot bigger. Like I said, most of my friends were white,
Mm-hmm.
and huge diversity of cultures when you grow up in East Van. I was actually in the minority now, like as a white person. Like my grad class at Gladstone, there was 4 other white people.
Right. There's a lot of, if I remember correctly, a lot of Chinese,
Vietnamese for sure. Yeah.
Filipino.
Yeah. But I find today Gladstone is a lot like Delview.
Yeah.
In terms of my general impression.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Just a little bit, it's a high school, but it doesn't really have like that energy of like a really big high school. Like I visited Churchill once, and I just felt like it was just so big.
It's massive.
Yeah, massive.
My
big.
wife works there. There's like 2,100 kids.
And then like Van Tech was like the next closest school I could have went to in my catchment, and that's a pretty big school too. Lots of different students there. Mm-hmm. And then when I went to visit Gladstone, this was this summer before grade 10, just to kind of see which high school I would go to. I just felt that, a bit more of a low key person. So I just like, this is gonna work.
Yeah. I
just find Delview is very similar in that.
Because I TLC'd at Gladstone and Windermere, and I found them both kind of similar that way. They're very like. Community based, and everybody was kind of tight and got to know each other well, that kind of thing. Yeah, kind of like here.
And I remember when I first walked into Gladstone, it was because Gladstone it's an old looking school. Mm-hmm. It reminded me of you ever seen the movie Pleasantville?
Mm-hmm. The black and white
with I think it's Tobey Maguire and I forget who the female actress was.
Yeah, it was Tobey Maguire.
I can't remember. I know who it is.
Where they get sent to the
1950s.
It's like the 50s, and they go to the high school, and it's got that like glossy looking wood finish and like the old looking lockers. Yeah. When I walked into Gladstone, it was like that, except a bit grungier. Not as glossy.
It hasn't changed.
It hasn't changed. Yeah, I remember I was there maybe a couple years ago just to visit. And I was like, hasn't changed whatsoever.
They're just starting to go through earthquake proofing. So,
they should have done that years ago.
Yeah,
it's like right off of a little hill too, so if it went down, it would crash.
Yeah, for sure. So you, after high school, you went to UBC?
Went to Langara for a year. Felt it was too high school-ish, so transferred to SFU.
What does that mean?
Well, I would say about half my grad class was at Langara that first year, so as if I was just like
too many people you knew.
I felt like I was just following my grade 12 class, and it was and like class sizes were small. I kind of wanted like that larger classroom experience. I don't know, it could be just a particular thing, but I just felt like it wasn't really a university experience because my brother went to SFU first year,
right?
So I was kind of hearing the stories, and I had friends from Squamish who I knew were eventually going to SFU, so I was like, okay, I want to line that up so that I'm starting my first year when you guys are starting.
You wanted the big school.
I wanted the big school.
You wanted the 500 people in a lecture hall.
Which I found out very quickly that kind of sucks.
It's not that fun.
It's not that fun.
It's an experience.
It's an experience,
yeah.
So I was at Langara for a year, and when I went to Langara, one of my main reasons for going is because after high school I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to take the writing program there. Mm-hmm. And within first semester, I realized I was taking basically three quarters of my classes were history. So I was like, well, might as well just do a degree in history. I'm already on that path now. Right. So that was a huge reason why I ended up transferring to SFU to do the history degree.
Yeah. But you seem like a multifaceted type of individual.
A Renaissance man, if you will.
Can do anything, as you've duly noted. Every time, like last year, we were going to lose you.
Yeah.
And you said, I'll come back. I'll be back. I'll do anything.
Whatever it takes, I think, were your parting words.
Whatever it takes. And you're here.
That part I don't remember, but I think perhaps it was echoed somewhere in my ear. Yeah.
Maybe that was the spirit of
maybe that's what
sure
Morgan heard.
It was verbatim. I'm pretty sure that's what you said. Came off as very cocky, quite glib. You were like, "Yeah, no, I got this." Yeah.
And try not to be just going for the humorous approach, but ended up reliving the joke.
How did you get into teaching? Because I've heard lots of different stories, and people go in different ways. How did you arrive at teaching as a profession?
So there was actually two moments. So it was halfway through SFU where I was starting to ask myself, okay, what am I going to do? Because I really had no aspirations to do anything with a history degree. Mm-hmm. And the only thing that really sort of kept me going with doing a history degree was writing, because I've always liked writing historical fiction. And I've always just liked what history was providing me in terms of material. But then halfway through, I was like, well, realistically, that's probably not going to work out so well. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I guess like lack of confidence, also probably the anxiety of going through university, just not sure what you're going to do exactly. And so I thought, okay, I think education would be a good path for me. So I started taking some education courses, getting myself prepared for PDP to apply. But as I was finishing my last year, I knew I was not ready. I was not ready to apply to PDP. I just wasn't in the mindset. Didn't have the drive for it. And looking back on it, if I had applied, there's no way I would have succeeded. That's at least what I feel.
Yeah.
So around that time, I was working at it was like an odd job that I was working just to help pay for school. It was at a precious metal company. And after I graduated, they had this position for a marketing position. So I was like, all right, I'll apply for it. And I got it. So for about a year in between graduating SFU and then eventually going to PDP, I was working at this marketing company. And somewhere along that way, I recognized, marketing is not for me. And so I naturally gravitated back to writing. And so I spent pretty much about that year taking writing courses, and I even took a summer course at VFS, the film school there. Mm-hmm. Just doing some writing courses. And so already midway through that experience, like taking these courses, I recognized the only way I'm able to do something that I'm really passionate about is through education. And that was the second moment where it really clicked for me that, I think education is just an important value to have. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to be a part of it in some way. Mm-hmm. So that was sort of like the second moment where I'm like, okay, now I'm going to apply to PDP. Now I have the drive.
But how did you get to that first moment?
That first moment?
Yeah, because
I think there was a couple
your
reasons.
Parents aren't educators. Like, were you influenced by educators, or
so
how did you get into it?
So my dad was actually in education. So he did the Cordon Bleu culinary program in Montreal. That was prior to coming to Squamish. But he was a trained cook, worked at a couple restaurants, but he didn't actually pursue like the chef career. What really got him going with culinary was teaching. So he worked at a high school cafeteria for about a year. And then from there worked at a college doing their culinary program. And then their culinary program after about a year shut down. So he's like, well, I need to continue somewhere. So he applied at this private institute, which eventually got taken over by AI at their culinary program.
The Art Institute.
Okay. Yeah. So he worked there for about a couple years. That's where he was working downtown Vancouver. So like colleges, downtown Vancouver. At the Art Institute. And then this was about 12 years ago now. He decided to start his own culinary school. And so it's on Main Street, Northwest Culinary. So he's been a part of education in that sense for about 2 decades now. So even though it wasn't like high school, he was still an educator in a sense. So that was a big part of it, because he's really good at what he does. And I've volunteered at his school many times. And so I meet his students, and they always, I guess they're so interested talking to me because they're so interested in how my dad teaches. And they thought he's very inspiring, he's relatable, he knows exactly what to say. And so hearing these kinds of stories kind of motivated me and being like, yeah, that's something that's special to be a part of. And then I would say the second person that inspired me during that first moment was my high school teacher. He was a socials history teacher. And I would say the way that I teach is almost exactly the way that he teaches, where it's more so about the connections that you have with students. Yeah. Right. That was his thing, making the classroom environment an environment that students want to be in. I try to model that as much as I can, because that's what got me going to class, was just feeling I want to be here. The banter, the humor, but also knowing when was the right time to actually get that learning piece said and get across. He just had some sort of skill that I was like, yeah, that's something. If I were a high school teacher, that's how I would want to do it. Right. Yeah. So that played a part of it in the back of my mind when I was thinking about it in high school. I'm like, okay, if I were to go into education, this is how I'd want to do it. Yeah. And
it's so important. Yeah. It's the first thing I tell student teachers, right? Yeah. Get to know the kids. Yeah. Have a relationship. Otherwise you can't do anything else. Yeah. Well. Yeah.
Yeah. I almost feel like everything else comes secondary. Yeah.
Yeah. So then you went into education at SFU. You did your PDP.
Did the PDP.
How did that go?
It was hard.
Yeah.
It was hard.
It's not easy.
It was one of the hardest things I've ever done with my life. Well, you know what? And it really
For
depends.
Ryan, it was super easy.
Totally fine. No,
it was a breeze. No,
it was
well, and I don't judge people no matter what their experience is. I met my current girlfriend in PDP. Her experience sounded like a dream. She had the best class. Her essay wasn't very supportive. But in terms of the other staff and the school itself, and especially the principal, very, very supportive. And she felt like she had the best first year of teaching experience she could have had, because she said she felt like a teacher, not a student teacher. And I was like, that's something you want to have.
That's huge.
That's huge, right? I felt like a student teacher. And if anything, I felt like I was a student teacher that was crawling through the door. And I remember it was the first day of PDP, when you're in the lecture hall, it's your orientation. The speaker was talking about, well, it's going to feel like a roller coaster and there's going to be ups and downs. I felt like my long practicum experience was I was hitting that downward slope the entire time, and sparks were flying, and parts were flying out, screws and wheels, and people were flying out. It was a tough experience. I felt like I was doing everything that I could possibly do, and I think I did relatively well. I just think that it was just so much hard work, and I got in a really bad pattern of working too much after school. And I was just tired all the time.
Where did you do your practice?
Burnaby Mountain.
Oh, okay.
So it was a good school.
I know. Yeah.
I had 2 essays who were completely different. The one essay I had, she was very activity driven, so she liked lots of activities. And so when you plan lots of activities, that's tiring to do that, especially as a student teacher. Basically reinventing the wheel every lesson, what activity can I do today, right? And just doing that. Yeah. My other essay was very inquiry driven. And inquiry is also very, very tiring.
Mm-hmm.
So I basically had 2 learning styles being mentored to me, and I was just exhausted all the time trying to do both.
It's the mental drain, for sure.
Mental drain, yeah. Like planning in an inquiry unit, and then also with my other essay in her classes doing activities. And it was a linear system. So I had 6 classes, and then my 7th class was in it was like a humanities alternative class. And I wasn't teaching, but I was volunteering there as like a second pair of hands. And yeah, it was just so much work. It was just so much work.
It's a ton of work because you're not only lesson planning and marking, you're also reflecting all the time, writing reflections all the time.
Yeah, which was actually something that I was quite good at. Yeah, something that my FAs and essays were like, yeah, you're really good at like reflecting and knowing what to do next. And so something I was always good at. Like if I didn't do well on a lesson, I reflected on it. They always said like, you always improved the second time around. So that was something I was good at. But that's a lot of work, right? Like even doing that now, like I still try to do that, but it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
And I think a lot of stress comes from, is this really for me?
Yeah.
What have I gotten myself? I remember just
is this it?
dreading, every morning. What
have I done?
Every morning I'd wake up, I'd have to take a shower to wake myself up, and then thinking about, is this going to be one of those days again?
And so, there was a couple stories that happened to me. So my first 2-3 weeks were great. And then midway through the 3rd week, a lot of my files on my computer got corrupted. So I lost a few really crucial things for my
darn hard drives.
Yeah, so and the only thing that my essays could say to me was, should have backed it up. I was like, thank you.
Like something I would
going
say.
through like a personal meltdown right now, but thank you. So that was one thing that really, really messed me up. And then so the second thing that happened was I had to use any remaining time I had to make up for what I lost. Mm-hmm. And so I went on this pattern of so school would end, I would do a little bit of prep to about 4 o'clock, and then I would go home, I would have something to eat, and then I would work till about 7, and then I would go to bed. I would go to bed, and then I would wake up at around 3 in the morning.
No.
3 in the morning, and then I would plan.
It's a solid 8 hours.
It's a solid 8 hours.
That's probably not the best way of,
And for some reason, the reason why I was doing that is because around 7 o'clock, I was just too mentally tired to actually do anything. I was like, I'm better off just going to sleep and then just waking up and then trying to work from there till when school starts.
I've done that before, but I find that I'm not a good morning person, first of all, and also at some point, like afternoon, I'm just dead tired. Yeah. When I do that.
Yeah. So, that's exactly what happened. And I did that for the remaining 8 weeks of my long practicum. Mm. And I had no phase out too. So it was just a slog. So I try to put like a positive spin on this. So when I have student teachers because I'm fairly new coming out of student teaching, when they come and ask me like, what was your experience like? Because have no idea. Mm-hmm. I'm always like, I need to tell them the exact opposite of what I went through and tell them what not to do. Yeah, because it was okay, but I made some crucial mistakes, which was exactly the routine that I put myself through. Like
you have to try different things in order to learn, right?
For sure.
And you have to go through
Absolutely.
it.
And like you said, you weren't a morning person. I definitely wasn't.
Yeah.
But I became a morning person.
Yeah.
And I actually enjoyed coming in at around like 7 in the morning because no one was at the school.
Right.
So I can just have the entire conference room or a staff room, and I would just like sit down, have my stuff, can use the printers or photocopy machine. No one would interrupt me. We'd get it all out, and then I knew by like 8 o'clock, I'm good for the day. Mm-hmm. I'd be like, okay, now I can just like sit down and have coffee and just relax until 8:30. Yeah.
Has it gotten any easier?
Way easier.
Yeah.
Way easier. Yeah.
Especially you.
Yeah.
Like, you're teaching so many different
You're taking on all
things.
these different subjects and new classes and classes that have
So
never
that's something
been done before.
Yeah, that's something I'm actually like very proud of myself for doing, because I think a lot of my friends who came out of PDP, I think, especially when they're applying for the jobs, right? Like whether it's like a temporary or a continuing contract, they're always like trying to look for that perfect contract. And at some point I would just ask myself, like, is it going to happen? And I said, the reality is no. So I can either complain or I can just suck it up and just try to do the best that I can. And recognizing that, I would have to do some stuff I've never done before. I'm going to have to be probably lesson planning like every day still. That's just how it is, right? Yeah. And I just grew used to it, and I grew very good at making a better routine out of it because I've learned from my experience from my long practicum. So 5 o'clock, I go home, and that's it. And then I try to make sure I'm using an appropriate amount of time on weekends to do whatever I need to do so I'm ready for the week. So I've gotten a lot better at also not being a perfectionist and being like, this is what I'm going with. Right? I'm cutting myself off. This is what I'm going with. This is what I'm doing. It's not perfect. Yeah, the lesson wasn't great, but it's like, right now, I can't be perfect. I'm doing completely new things right now.
Massaging until you're dead.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is it's never going to be perfect, even if you spent another 2 hours. Yeah, there's and I think too that I think you've put that in a really good way. Because it's true, the job doesn't necessarily get easier, but you get better at it.
You get better at it.
Whether you acknowledge that or not, you do. Like you figure out ways to plan lessons more efficiently and more effectively. You have a much better idea of what's going to work and what's not going to work, and that changes with different classes,
for sure,
and that sort of thing. But once you've got a little bit of experience, once you get past that, like, clawing your way with sparks flying, as you said, you get more of that routine down, and you kind of you can see things a bit more clearly and able to take on new stuff like that. So
I think clearly in the sense too, like knowing when to like pick your moments, right? Like sometimes it's like, of course, the person inside of you is saying like you want to be 100% at everything you do, but sometimes it's like I got to dial it back to 80. Or else, like, I won't be 100% ever again. Right? So sometimes, like, knowing when to tell yourself, like, you need to dial back. And something that I'm finding this semester, which would be, interesting to hear, is I'm finding that I'm more relaxed than I was last semester. And I was teaching 2 social studies blocks, 1 math, and I had a prep. I feel more relaxed this semester than I did then because... When I say last semester, I mean like the spring, last year, because that was also like my first like full semester. It's just me, like nothing temporary anymore. It's like that's my load. That's what it is. So I was going at 100% because I felt like I had to, right? It's that person inside of you. But then now it's like I can't do that because I'm drafting DIY. Law that's got tossed in, got no prep in there. I'm at Home Depot like every weekend. Like that's not fun. But by dialing it back a little bit, just so I can have a little bit of peace of mind around my load, I find that I do have more moments to have fun with it, and to relax and actually enjoy the process.
So it's more of a mindset change.
It's a huge mindset change. Yeah.
That's good. I'm glad you found that balance.
Yeah.
Because we use that term a lot, balance, and it's hard to it's hard to find it sometimes.
I think it's like balance and also like acceptance. Like my girlfriend's teaching at a middle school right now. She's teaching brand new subjects at that school. And she sees how many hours I'll put in on a weekend. And she's like, how can you work that much on a weekend? But like I have the mindset knowing that like it's all right. Like I know like that's how much I'll work, and I know I'll be okay, and I'm not going to go over that. And I know it's not too much where I feel stressed out or I'm exhausted. Right? It's just like I found like the right balance for myself, like how much I need to work personally,
right,
to still feel good in my work, but also still feel good in my life.
Well, you find a rhythm and a routine. It's kind of like working out, actually, which I'm
absolutely.
not good at. But
I'm not good at that
the teaching thing, you find your own rhythm and routine, and then if you can keep it up, then it's not too bad.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then over the years, you just build up what you can do and the things that you have, the tools that you have, and then it does get easier. Yeah,
you just start knowing yourself a little bit better too. Like in terms of like who you will be in this career, right? I don't know, maybe it's different for everyone, but at least I'm learning that for sure. Like who is Victor in this career? And I'm finding out some things each and every week.
Yeah,
like,
and it'll change too,
yeah,
right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Yeah.
Do you find this is the case? Like even when you're taking a break or on vacation, you're still thinking about teaching?
Sometimes,
every day.
Because I can't help it. Like I know, like when I go to Japan, or I'm thinking, oh, this would be great to show the kids. Or I'm at some science museum, I'm like, oh, this would be great to use in my slideshow or whatever.
Yeah. So I think everyone has those moments for sure, where like you see something, you know it will fit. And so I have lots of things saved, like bookmarked on my phone or on my computer. I browse Reddit regularly, just as basically for pleasure, but at the same time, like I'm seeing things like, oh, like the way that question is worded or that image is paired with this caption. I'm like, oh, there's something there I can probably...
Reddit's terrific for teachers.
For sure.
I've asked so many questions on that and gotten so many resources back. It's like almost immediate.
So it's like, I don't know if it's so much like my mind is always thinking about it, or my mind, there's like a second engine that's running that's like, as soon as I catch something, it like stores it. But I'm pretty good at turning my brain off to work, because I think like my outlet is video gaming. So like that's where I want to, if I need to autopilot, and like I need to autopilot because I'm definitely one of those personalities that will constantly think.
Right.
And a lot of that comes out of not just work, but it came from like writing too. Like I'll sometimes never go to sleep just because I'm always like I'll try to go to sleep and I'm like, oh, I need to write that down. So I'll write that down. And I'll try to go to sleep, and then I'll spark a new idea and I'll write that down. So there have been days where like I just don't go to sleep. So I need to autopilot. So like I channel that into gaming. I'll autopilot, then my brain is basically like numb. Now I can go to sleep. Yeah. So I've...
What are your games?
What are my games? RPG games.
Okay.
And it goes completely well because I just like writing. So I like RPGs for the story.
Right.
Yeah.
So like Call of Duty, or...
So things like Call of Duty, like those first person shooters, can do it. I used to when I was younger, like high school. Lots of Halo. Halo was everything in high school. But RPG games, like some of the old ones were like Baldur's Gate, which are like Dungeons and Dragons inspired stories.
So older RPGs
like Diablo. Some of the newer ones are like The Witcher, Dragon Age. Those are like more like current ones. There was a period of time in grade 11 specifically where I would say it was an addiction to World of Warcraft. Went through my year.
That game's been around.
It's been around.
Still, there's still people who play it.
Yeah. But like, of course, like I definitely don't have the same amount of time to put into video games as I did when I was going through like high school, university. So, like I usually try to get like, I don't know, an hour every couple days.
It's a good mindless thing. Like I do too on weekends, and my kids play, so I'll play with them, which is kind of neat. All sorts of stuff. They like playing Fortnite and stuff like that. I'm terrible at that. So.
Yeah, like I have little students who are like, oh, do you play Fortnite or Call of Duty? Like those first person shooter games, like high pace, fast, quick reaction times. I'm like, that's a young man's game. Like I'm young, relatively speaking, but like,
young man's video game.
But
I like that.
when you like those type of games, like if you look at the competitive scene, like the ages are 15 to 22. But it's true. Like that's just it's reaction.
And usually
time.
You drop into the game and you get killed right away. So it's
and it gets frustrating, right? Yeah. Hence why I play RPG games where I can go at my pace, and I'm invincible.
Yeah.
But a game that I normally play in order to like really get that autopilot and just to unwind completely is Super Smash Brothers.
Oh yeah.
So I've been probably playing
mashing.
I've been probably playing Super Smash Brothers every day, like whether it's like for like 5, 10, probably no more than 30 minutes every day for about maybe a decade.
Wow.
Yeah. Because it is completely like I'm at a point where my brain doesn't even do anything. It just my hands do all of it.
Yeah.
I just play.
You must be pretty good at it.
Yeah, I've gone pretty good. And I have the one for the computer.
Uh-huh.
Like it's like a flash version of it.
Right.
And I've just gotten very good because it's just that's where I go if I need autopilot.
Huh.
Yeah.
Who's your character?
Got a few. Got Marth, Captain Falcon, and Falco.
Okay.
Those are my 3. For sure.
No idea what you're talking about.
They're just Nintendo characters.
We've been playing.
Gotcha.
We've been playing the new one on the Switch.
Yeah.
So that's my son's game.
Yeah.
And so I play him once in a while.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like some of the grade 11s, grade 12s, like they'll play it.
Yeah.
There's what's this? Carl. Carl, he's in photography. Mm-hmm. He's known as he's like undefeated amongst all his friends.
Really?
But I've beaten him once.
Oh.
Yeah. So I was like, I always can't
Respect
let that
your
go.
elders.
Yeah, I was just like,
we should do a tournament here.
Well, there was
Pretty cool.
people playing a couple years ago in the metal shop. They were doing Smash Brothers.
Oh, really?
yeah.
I remember
who
during
was
30
doing
Hour
that.
Famine, some of those games were pretty popular.
I haven't
Does
really
John
played.
play? Doesn't John play Smash Brothers? I don't feel like he does.
Well, he said he did,
Okay.
but the
Yeah.
GameCube one, which was the one I played a lot when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've never played the. There was one after, I forget what it's called now, but I haven't really played the Switch one. I've only played a little bit of it, but the one for the Nintendo Wii, I've never played it.
Okay.
No, I've only really played the GameCube one and the one on the computer.
That's the only console I have is the Wii.
The Wii?
Wii, yes.
Yeah.
And I don't really. My kids played a bit, but they've been they want to get a Switch, but I've been holding out. It's so expensive. I'm like, oh, come on, go outside and play soccer.
Well, I
the ball.
spent $2,000 on a computer.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So like
A gaming PC?
gaming PC, like it's just like my closest friends are all.
Do you have the chair and with the?
No,
okay.
no, I don't. I don't have the chair. I don't have like the
chair
dual
with the speakers
monitors
in it?
with like this the super mouse and the super keyboard.
So you have dual?
No, I don't.
okay.
I don't. Like
You don't.
I have friends that do. I just have the computer.
What is it?
It's an Acer model, but it's like their gamer. It's like their gaming PC. It's called the Predator. Mm-hmm. It makes like a Terminator sound when you turn it on.
Cool.
It's
Glows.
massive. It's like this big. It weighs like 30 pounds. It's heavy duty.
It's got a nice clicky keyboard.
It's stunning. It's stunning for what it is. Yeah, it's stunning. It's
You
definitely
love
like,
this computer, don't you?
I do love it.
You
I do love it. So,
Invested so much money into it.
yeah, and so my girlfriend's she's supportive. She knows what it's for, and I'm definitely not that person who like
It can do word
spends
processing.
hours. Oh yeah, it does everything a normal computer would, but I won't spend hours and hours on it. And so she knows what it's for though. And like I have my like specific desk for the computer. And
No one's allowed to touch said computer.
well, she's like, well, what if I want to do some marking? Can I use your desk? And I'm like,
No.
sure, like you can unplug it, but besides that, like you cannot touch the cords. Like everything is set up. Like don't mess
Perfectly
it
set
up.
up, yeah.
Don't
I
mess
know
up
what
the
that's
setup.
like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I get it. I just never like I played video games when I was younger, and John and I grew up with the same kind of like Nintendo and Sega Genesis kind of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like it was so different then, right? Like it didn't hold your attention like it does now. Games, right? Like they were much more lo-fi.
Yeah.
And then I don't know. As an adult, I just never. I don't know. I feel like I just didn't really have time, or I was doing other stuff. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, I don't judge
that.
people who don't like video games. Like it's really doesn't. It's to me, it's just like someone who likes sports. It's like whatever. It's like pick
It's a
whatever
hobby,
you like.
right?
It's a
Yeah.
hobby. It's an interest. Whatever. And I think a lot of it comes down to just like your group of friends, right? Mm-hmm. The culture of your group of friends. So where I got into gaming was that move from Squamish to Vancouver. because when I was living in Squamish, I just did sports. I did swimming, baseball, and hockey. Like, those were my sports. And then when I moved, I sort of held back from doing those sports, and I really kind of cut out a lot of it. And then a lot of the friends that I was making at Gladstone were gamers. And I've always liked video games, but I never really played them. Actually, like, when the Super Nintendo was really big, I was scared of playing. I would only watch my brother play. Like, he would buy or rent he would go to, like, the video store, rent the game and play, and I would just watch. I was too scared to play. I'm like, it's too difficult for me. I couldn't play it. And then I guess around like 15, well, actually, not even earlier than that, like around like 12, 13, I was like starting to play a lot more video games, like Halo and stuff. Mm-hmm. And then when I was 15 and I was pulling away from playing a lot of sports, I was like, all my friends were playing video games. They were introducing me all these video games I've never heard about. I was like, wow, you can play video games on a computer? I only knew about like N64, GameCube, PlayStation. They're like, there's computer games? And they're like, yeah, there's computer games. That's where I got introduced to Counter-Strike. And that's where it like really took off, was playing computer games. And that's why, hence the $2,000 computer I bought.
Did you have like the headset and you communicate?
Yeah, I had the headset. Like, friends would like text message. That's when like cell phones were pretty rudimentary too. They would text message like, "Hey, I'm coming online." Yeah, you would get online. You would play with your friends online.
That's also the cool thing about Fortnite, right? Yeah. When you can so easily talk to the people that are grouped with you and strategize, and that's fun.
And it was also a way for me to hang out with my friends back in Squamish,
right?
Because I couldn't see them, but I could play video games with them, and a lot of them were playing World of Warcraft, and that was like our world to hang out. Because I know it sounds cheesy, but that's basically the way that was how we were treating it. We didn't have a place to hang out because what are we going to do? Just talk,
right?
Might as well just hang out and talk, and also.
It's so funny because I think that's what
it sounds nerdy, but that's just literally how we treated it.
I think that's how kids treat it nowadays too. Yeah, especially over Fortnite. Look, so many people are in Fortnite. Yeah. I like sometimes my son will get on there, and they'll be playing, and then all of a sudden they're asking like about homework, and I'm like, you're having like a side conversation while you're shooting people about what's going on.
I think it's gone a little bit too far now, because now it's not just the game, it's all the media around the game too. So like, how often do I see students watching YouTube clips of video games? Like, they're watching people playing video games.
Oh, like Twitch.
Yeah, that's huge, right?
Yeah. Like, it's huge. And I can see why, because it's like, if you don't have that immediate community of gamers, that's where it is, right? You join the chat, everyone's a gamer, everyone likes that game, everyone enjoys watching that person play the game. That's your space to socialize. But when all I see is, students doing this at lunch, watching people play video games, and their friend is right beside them doing the exact same thing, it's like, wow, now it's really become something I don't even understand. And it's closely part of my generation.
Yeah, it's part of that. But also, I mean, it can be healthy to find a community like that and be interested and nerd out on stuff like that, just like with anything.
Yeah.
But you can't let it take over your entire life. And, we've had kids who have been addicted to video games in our classes.
Yeah, I see a lot,
cannot get anything done.
Yeah.
Or even they would skip school. Yeah. And that totally affects the real world.
Right? And I try to time my conversations with students where I kind of see something similar to what I went through in grade 11, because that's basically what I did. Like, grades were really low, was failing certain classes, was playing World of Warcraft nearly every day. After school, from when I got home till 11, that was it.
Yeah.
And I knew it was pretty bad. It was pretty bad. Like, one of my parents were trying to get quite concerned, and I wasn't really seeing my friends anymore. Like, my friends started not playing that game anymore, and it was just me. And when I started to think about, like, who are your friends, I was like, people from different countries who I play with every day. And I was like, really, what am I really getting out of this?
Yeah.
That's But like I needed that like moment realization. I think like for the students, they need to have that self-realization.
Mm-hmm.
Self-realization, or somebody just to
tell them
handle it or to intervene.
Yeah,
right. That's what you want. Like there are some cases that we have here where it's just gone totally overboard. And somebody better do something at home.
Yeah. Well, my dad, he took away the power bar to my computer.
Mm-hmm.
So without the power bar, you have nothing.
Yeah.
I easily could have bought another power bar, but I kind of took like the ignorant approach and was just like, I don't have a power bar.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, that's it.
That's it. Like
there's no more power bars in the world, so I'm done.
even then, the only thing I could think about was like, I can't wait until I get the power bar.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like it really is an addiction.
That's definitely an addictive trait.
Yeah, like that's definitely it, right? And
but they make the game so immersive, even back then. Like even though the graphics weren't as good, it's still like the storytelling and the graphics, the art, and just the abilities that you have within the game made you feel good about it.
Yeah.
It gave you what you needed to feel good about yourself.
So the last game that I played where I was like really into it, where I was spending like hours, but it was almost like you feel like you spent 5 minutes, but really an hour went by, was a game where it was a lot of dialogue and nothing was spoon-fed to you.
Mm-hmm.
Like if part of the story was like you need to find a key, you had to like talk to people in the game to find out where it was. Like you couldn't, it wasn't like told you like the key's in this room on the shelf, right? It was one of those games where, and I like, you feel completely immersed.
Uh-huh.
Like, you feel like you are part of this story and you are going through the same routine as the computer NPCs in the game. And I would remember like, all I wanted to do was just, talk to this person and figure out what I needed to do next. And it would be like 2 hours went by.
Right.
Because it felt like it was part of real life. Like if you wanted to figure out a task and execute it, it would probably take about like half a day in real life. Well, that's what it felt like in the game. It would be half a day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was real time. Those trying to solve this puzzle.
Yeah, in real time. Yeah.
Yeah, those bug me. Just like any puzzle. If I can't figure it out, I could be staying up all night trying to figure it out. So.
That's why I can't play those games while... Like, I'll only play a game like that when it's like winter break or spring break or the summer.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can only play like the Super Smash Brothers, something that's mindless, autopilot. Because as soon as it's something immersive, I'll be thinking about it while I work.
Right.
Like, a student will be talking to me right in front of my face, and chances are I'll be thinking about the game.
Where's that key?
Exactly, right? So I only play those games when it's not during school time.
Huh.
No.
You see what Fortnite does nowadays, where they have all these new releases all the time, and they have concerts in Fortnite, and there's just so much there that it's hooking.
Well, here's the other thing
kids
too.
And
There's the features that students pay for or kids pay for.
Right.
That it's like, I want that. It's just like a costume that their character
It's amazing.
wears.
It's a free game.
It's a free game,
and they make millions and billions
off of the transactions that transactions that kids want to buy.
Mm-hmm. It's like that Ready Player One movie, right? It's kind of like that universe, right?
For sure.
Right.
Like that's a huge part of it. Like I have friends who are my age who play cell phone games, and cell phone games are pretty mindless, right? When you really think about the bare bones of it. Mm-hmm. But the thing that gets them hooked is they're like, I can buy this thing. It's like $3.
What's $3?
And it's like, what's $3? Yeah. And then it's like, now that you spent $3, you've unlocked this. Now you've really unlocked many more opportunities to spend money. And so, like, I have friends. I'm like, so how much money do you think you've spent on this phone game? A phone game. He's like, probably about $800.
Oh my gosh,
Jesus! Yeah. And then there was, you heard of the game League of Legends? It's like,
I've heard of that.
Like a strategy game on the computer.
Big in esports.
Yeah, it's huge in esports. I played it for a few years, and I had friends who played it for many, many years. And it was at some point they tracked how much you spent on features in the game, because that's also a free game. It's a free game, but you can spend spend money for features. They tell you. And so my friends were all finding out I had probably spent maybe $40 tops over a span of 3 years, which I feel like for the amount of hours I played, $40, that's pretty good. Mm-hmm. They're like, so they're about to find out, and this is over like the the headset stuff, and they're like, oh man,
what have I done?
$1,500. I'm like, Jesus. Like when I think about that, I'm like, oh, that's
what have I done with my life?
That's a new computer.
What have I done? That's bills. That's rent.
That's bills and things to keep you alive.
Right. That's a vacation.
Yeah.
At least like a hotel for a week or something. I don't know. Like, yeah, mind blowing. I think that's the part that scares me. Like, it's just the amount of money you can spend on a game.
Well, those micro payments.
And
if they spread it out and you pay a little bit, it doesn't feel like much.
Doesn't feel like much.
But like you said, I'm surprised that they let you know how much you spent, because that would
there may have been a lot involved in that. I'm guessing.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, and I can imagine like if some parents knew that some of these little small transactions made on their credit card for their kid's game, they really added it up, how much it would add up to. Would they just be able to justify it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. Food for thought.
Totally. So, how do you feel about? I mean, we're glad that you're here teaching all these different things.
Yeah.
What do you see yourself doing in the future in terms of like what would your? I know there's no perfect load, but you seem to be really interested in writing and history. Is that something that you want to end up teaching eventually?
I think down the road I would like to teach creative writing. I think I would like to also teach History 12, and I really enjoyed teaching Socials 11 last year. Social studies definitely I'm most comfortable in. But as of right now, it could literally be anything. It can literally be I've stopped telling myself what's the perfect courses to teach, because it can honestly be anything. In a lot of cases this semester I've enjoyed teaching the DIY class. It's really interesting. I'm learning so much. But I don't know if that's something I would want to do each semester. And I think it's the same thing with drafting. I find drafting really cool. I really like the kind of projects the students are doing right now. But and that part's rewarding when there's a student that's like, oh, I don't think I can do that, and then they're able to actually do it. It's like they created something on the screen,
right?
Or they created something with their hands. That's pretty cool. But I don't know. It could easily be something that I start teaching. I'm not ruling it out whatsoever. I could be a shop tech teacher. Not to say that I'm skilled enough to do it. It's not that I can easily replace Mark Brown.
Yeah.
He's got way more experience than I do. But I think there's definitely that same level of satisfaction as I do teaching social studies.
Yeah. That's good to hear. Because
very cool. Yeah.
I spent probably 2.5 years TOCing because I was looking for that perfect.
Yeah.
Coming out of biological sciences, genetics, I wanted something to do with that. Yeah. And there's just nothing around that had that kind of load.
Yeah.
And then, actually, cool story. Your dad worked at Arts Institute.
Yeah.
Just before that, there was a school there called ITI.
Okay.
Which was just a tech school.
Yeah.
I actually went there probably a couple of years.
Wow.
2001 was when I finished the program there.
Okay.
That's where I met my wife. And we were both, at the point in our careers where we were like, maybe it's not for us. Maybe we want to try something else.
Yeah.
So I took some programming and stuff there. And then after that, I went back into, because there was It was 2001. It was a terrible time. There was 9/11 happened, and tech bubble burst. And so I was like, maybe I'll give teaching another shot. Or my wife suggested that.
Okay.
And since she's actually gone into teaching because she was in marketing before. So I gave it another shot and just took whatever I could. And it was so helpful because at first I was afraid to teach anything else. Like I wanted to stick with what I knew, which was just science and which was just biology. But having the opportunity to teach like stuff like math, or even like PE and things I wasn't comfortable with, kind of I think helped me develop as a teacher because you get to have a sense of what teaching in different subject areas is like. And you bring some of that to whatever discipline you end up teaching in the end, right? So now I'm doing infotech. Yeah. I don't have a computer science degree. I'm totally self-taught. Yeah. Besides that one course that I took. But, you kind of gain confidence to teach whatever there is. And to do stuff like cross-curricular stuff. Like, I'm quite comfortable doing that as well because I've been in so many different areas. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And I'm sure you feel the same way.
Completely. And I think a huge part of it, too, is by teaching these different subjects, it's engaging me in what teaching is all about, which is how am I going to teach this? Right? Like... When summer rolled around and I knew I was going to be teaching drafting and DIY, I was like, how am I going to teach this? Right. So I felt I had no choice but to immerse myself in these subjects, whether it was playing around on CAD for an hour each day just to get into it, or looking for any odd home improvement do-it-yourself project that I can try. It encouraged me to do that. And I feel like that's an important thing to model as a teacher for students too, right? The learning, be like every student that's in the DIY or the drafting knows that I have no experience in that stuff. But hey, look at what I've learned and then passing this on to you. It's very I hate using this word, but it's like a very organic way of learning, right? It's like, hey, I've learned this, and you pass it on to someone else, right? It's just like parents have learned something, they pass it on to you, right? It's like kind of the same sort of process. And I just thought, if I shy away from it, I'm shying away from what I believe just philosophically about teaching, and I'm shying away from a huge part of what teaching means to me. I was like, this is part of my job. This is what I signed up for.
And I think when you're doing that, when you take on something new, you're even closer to understanding what students have to go through in order to learn whatever the concept is, right?
Absolutely.
Because it's like all of a sudden you're teaching something completely different. How you learn that very hands-on type of course is different from how you would learn something in history. Yeah. Right?
And typically we teach things that have come easy to us, which is why we've pursued it. Right, so
for sure,
step outside of your comfort zone. Yeah, I think it definitely puts yourself in the shoes of the learner.
Absolutely.
I read in a book. I can't remember. I read so many books; they all blend together now. But there was a book that talked about it's the tapping game, where it's a game you play when you're trying to tap somebody on the shoulder. And you're just trying to tap out a song, and you try to get them to guess it. Okay. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And you know the song. They don't know the song. Yeah. You're tapping it out, and it could be Happy Birthday or something like that. And it's so obvious to you. Yeah. And they're not getting it, and you're getting so frustrated. How could you not know the song? It's so obvious. It's the song that we sing all the time. Yeah. But the fact is that it's because you already know what it is. Yeah. So sometimes it's hard to have kind of a beginner's mindset that way because you already think you know everything. Yeah. And you're like, why don't these kids get it? So sometimes it's good to take a step back and figure out, or try it again yourself, and have that beginner's mindset. My my son's violin teacher once told me, and she's passed on, like she's passed away, but she told me that always like try the instrument that whoever's playing. Like I wasn't learning violin; it was my son who was learning violin, but I had to kind of get him through practice and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And she said, you should get a violin yourself and try it yourself before you criticize what he's doing.
Right.
Because you don't know unless you know,
Yeah.
right? And I found that so helpful as somebody who's a parent trying to get him through. Like, how come you can't do those scales? How come it's out of tune? I tried it myself, and it's like, really okay, it's not so easy. It's not so easy.
Yeah.
Right? So it's, I love that idea of you being so open to learning anything.
Yeah.
At the same time, like, that wasn't my choice.
So we're just trying to justify
have to eat. Right?
It's not entirely by choice, but at the same time, it's like I'm not gonna criticize, but like I'm not gonna complain about the hand I've been dealt. Right? Like that's like I hear these kind of stories all the time where like teachers have to teach subjects they're not comfortable with. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, I can do this, right? And I think having enough confidence in yourself, it'll be fine.
Yeah,
it'll be fine.
Well, you have a positive attitude though too. I think that helps a lot.
Like, I think that's your personality, though. It seems like your whole life story's been like that.
Yeah, it's going to be fine.
It'll be good.
It'll be fine. Like, and it was something that my FA had told me in PDP. Like during that, that downward slope of the long practicum, he's like, you're not gonna die. You're not gonna die at the end of this day. Like, don't worry so much. Like, if it's not perfect, it's not like you're gonna lose an arm,
right?
Or anybody else in the class.
Yeah,
right. It's not life and death.
And something I had to also go back to is when I was a high school student, I didn't take it that seriously. And I survived, right? And it's not like I was a horrible student. Like I did fine, but like still, like school is school, right? Like like there's moments you have to enjoy, but it's also not the thing that's going to define your life forever, right? Yeah. So I need to also, from a teacher's perspective, know that these kids are probably thinking similar thoughts, right? That it's all right. Like it's just one class, right? At the end of the day, it's just one class, right? So if I mess it up, they're going to be okay. They're going to be just fine. So if they're just fine, and I know I'm not going to die, then it's all good. It's
Nothing
all
to worry
good.
about.
Except in the shop, they can possibly
You got to be careful in the shop.
Yeah, like today I almost did something that probably could have taken my hand off, but fortunately,
I've done that in the shop as well.
Yeah. You learn something new every day. I learned to keep my hand. Yeah.
Away from the blade.
Away from the blade. Yeah.
Well, it's been nice talking to you. And
this has been illuminating. I feel like I know you now.
Really?
We came in here going, who is Victor? Really, we've known him for a year and a half, but who really is Victor?
And don't feel bad. I've always been the like mysterious type, and I don't do that by choice or like because I want to be that way. I think it just happens to be that way. Like even like my girlfriend probably just after about, let's say 4 years, she's just trying to know who I am. I'm very
Armenian. What?
I'm very like I pick when I reveal things. Yeah.
Well, I remember when you were.
It's not that like I want to be
here.
Are you a poker player? Do you play poker?
No,
Seem like
I don't like gambling.
I think like you'd play well.
Actually, I say I don't like gambling, but I've made some really good bets in my life.
That's for another podcast, I think.
For another podcast.
But I remember when you were TOCing here several times.
Yeah.
I'm like, who's that guy? Don't know him. But here you are.
Made an impression. Made enough of an impression to come back.
Yeah. He'll do anything.
He'll do anything. Well, that's what really got my foot in the door was TOCing for Mal for
physics. Yeah, physics. I remember that, yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's what really, I think that's what really got my foot in the door and got me recognized by Morgan.
Oh, yeah, I do remember that. Yeah.
When he was on that medical leave.
That's right.
And they could not find a TOC because he was only working half the time. And it was like they needed someone
could teach physics either.
Yeah, and I remember I went in for a day, and I went in for that day, and I could just see the kids were just had a month's worth of TOCs.
Right.
They had like 4 or 5 different TOCs at that point, and I just felt like, oh, it sucks for them.
That does suck.
Mm-hmm.
That sucks. And I was like, why not? Like, at that point, too, I like being at Delview. And I was like, well, at least this keeps me at Delview for every day.
Yeah.
So, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And it's half a day. I'll be all right financially. I'll be okay. It's not ideal, but, well, it's all right. It's just for like a month. And I think that got me recognized.
Yeah, no, I
sure.
think it definitely did.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're willing to pick up a tough subject and, like you said, immerse yourself in it and actually learn it.
And then I did it again for David Bennett the following year with
Math.
For Math 11, yeah.
Good for you.
So I did it again. So I was like, oh, this guy. And then teacher's like, oh, so you have a math background, right? I'm like, nope.
Sure.
Nope.
Well, now you do.
Now I do. Now I do. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's good talking to you.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Nice to meet you,
podcast.
Mr.
Minichiello.
Minichiello.
The accent really helps.
Yeah?
It does.
Is that right?
Minichiello, yeah.
Yes.
Minichiello.
Awesome. Thank you.